One of the tools in the GURDJIEFF OUSPENSKY schools is learn to think in new categories. Easier said than done. Because to do that, you have to think up a new category. Or be given data that you didn't have and use that to discover new categories. I'm going to go over that. I said in yesterday's video I would talk about the other two alien races who are here. And one of them is the mantis. They supposedly look like a praying mantis. And people who've been able to visit them have said they're in a kind of a office-like scenario where they have computers and people working on computers. And they're taken to see the head guy who is very tall, wearing a long dark coat. And there's a lot of people who've been visited by these beings when they were children and are told that the mantids are harmless and will be back to see you later when you're an adult. The other group is the bird-like creatures. I don't know much about them. It is, the data I have on them is they're not all that friendly to humans. And if you get into their arena, you will start finding feathers just lying on the ground. And that happened to me for a period of time. I was finding feathers everywhere. But I was warned off them in that they're not friendly and may want to take you over mentally. So this will be about how can people be seeing these 6 alien races when there are no skeletons or photographs of them. And for this we go over to the Fourth Way School, which talks about food that powers the bipedal life form. According to Robert Morningstar, the humanist form, the upright creature with 2 legs and 2 arms, is the basic pattern in this universe game for intelligent beings. And almost all the animals have this. And why this could be true is, according to another teacher, that the spiritual component, the spiritual non-corporeal being, wants to play in this universe, will enter into a biological system, learn more about the biological system and the matter, energy, space, and time, and die, is outside again, knows more, comes back in with the new data. Improvements on the scale take trillions of years, maybe even longer. And there aren't that many options to success, so the pattern for a spiritual being in a meat body is basically a upright quadruped, whether it be a human being or a praying mantis being or a reptilian. So one of the things I look for in thinking in new categories is what part of this story is a little too human to be alien. If they all have clothing and spaceships and radios and a society with a ruler. So why could one see these? And this is from the Gurdjieff OUSPENSKY school, that food comes in here. There's solid food that we eat, and there's a large chemical chain of turning it into energy. Gaseous ingredients come in here and are expelled here. Oxygen coming in, waste products and carbon dioxide going out. And the eyes are taking in what they call impressions, and impressions are a food. And if you could cut off someone's impressions completely, they would die, apparently. The impressions are the motivating factor in this. And don't go and say, what about people who are blind? Because people who are blind are just not being informed that this food is coming in. The use of this knowledge is, if this is food, that which we see, our world, we're dealing with it, we have to respond to this and live within it and work with it. But what if it is just food, and we back off into the position where one is a point of spirit experiencing something? The yogis and the Eastern people tell us that the world is an illusion. There is the old Greek story about someone's in a cave and other beings are doing a puppet show on a screen with the backlight, and these people are watching the shadows and trying to make sense of it. This would be a similar step back from what's really going on in your world. So if these three things are food, and the impressions, also hearing what you hear is also impressions, are food and not reality, then you have yourself in the position of cloudy with a chance of meatballs. And the food could be controlled. And if what we perceive as the 3D world is not really that, but food coming in, there's something else more than that, or other than that, which you could mistakenly call another dimension. But if you were an animal in a cave or a cage and someone slipped a plate of food into your cell every day, you might not know that you're an animal. You might not know you're in a box. You might not know that who's ever slotting that food into you has a complete other world that it's part of, and that you're not part of. And I think this is why one can see reptilians walking through walls, or be visited by Palladians, or meet a being covered with feathers. These are your jailers coming to interact with you. Right now we have a feathered being honking at me. So this is an explanation of why this could be possible. And humans have the 7 chakras, to control various aspects of life, and they are also aerials to celestial influence and telepathic influences. Influences from this planet, other planets, our star, other stars. I imagine billions of communication lines coming to you from every star in the galaxy. That would be enough, that you're part of the zeitgeist of the galaxy, and you don't know that. And why you don't know that is there are two higher centers above the chakras. There's one above the head, which is called the higher intellectual center, right? And then a higher one again called the higher emotional center. And these are capable of direct communication with what's not food, gases, or impressions. And one becomes aware of being connected to all of those communication lines from all of the suns and planets and worlds and beings on those worlds, all at the same time. Which is why it's so overwhelming when that happens, because you're not trained, because you have no experience with it. And those who meditate are training to clear the mechanical stuff that goes on in your mind, not your brain, your mind, to become aware that there is more perceptions available. And from my case, when I do that, I perceive I am in blackness, but there's a light from above, very, very dim light, as if you were in a dark alley or a warehouse, and there was 75-watt bulb somewhere 60 feet in the air, just giving a little hint, less than moonlight. And if you look up or think up, things happen. And the first center up, I think, operates 2,500 times faster than the mind. And the next one up is 1.2 million times faster than the mind. So it can deal with all those impressions. So part of regaining your power as an immortal, all-powerful being is to put your attention on that area and get some experience in it. And you can telepathically influence 8 to 12 dimensions around you just by conceiving of it. And it happens. This is the basis of luck. If you're open to it, things will just appear in your universe. This has been happening to me for years. People have been giving me cars. I needed a printer, and I went out to go leave my house, and there was a printer sitting in the alley, and there was a guy just putting it there. I said, "Does that still work?" He said, "Yeah. I used it all the way through university, but I graduated, and I don't need it anymore." That was 14 years ago. I still have it. I still use it. So in the milieu of the modern world, it is a good idea to try any form of quieting the minds. The GURDJIEFF OUSPENSKY school, one of their other tools is talking about that one has many eyes. I'm cold, I'm hungry, I wish I had a better girlfriend, I can't afford to fix my car, my feet stink, I don't like applesauce, all that stuff, you know. So, and then she said this and he did that, and I can't believe they do this, and that was so unjust. Injustice is a big one, mulling over injustice. That's not going to get you anywhere, and it burns up energy, which is made by the three forms of food. And to power the higher centers, you need more energy than just running your normal body and going jogging. So just one example is the Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, who's that guy? The Maharishi is selling transcendental meditation. And the basis of that is they give you a word from Sanskrit that you don't know the meaning of, and you're not supposed to share it with anyone else because it's your word. And you use that like a bell in your mind, you're saying the word over and over again. And I don't know if they actually know what the technology of that is, but this is actual technology. If you put your attention on that one word, it stops all the many eyes from getting in there and brings you closer to being able to suddenly become aware of your higher centers. And again, thinking in new categories, if you weren't told you have two higher centers, and if you do this, you will experience them, it'll just be a shock. If you have information, you can go, oh, that's what the black space is. Well, the first time I did this successfully, I was running my word, and I got the perception of falling backwards down my esophagus like Neo in the Matrix when he goes, ah. And I wound up in a soft, warm, and fuzzy black space. And I said, here I am. And I had the impression that I was just eyes. And off this side of my body was a red laser line going out into the darkness, and hanging, it was continuously moving out. And there are objects being created like books and scissors and eyeglasses and things. Okay. Most of the major religions, I'm going to say most, some of the major religions are based on the founder had an experience like this, experienced his higher centers, experienced the all of everything. It comes in on you. It's like reading a 2,500-page book like this. Human mind can't accept that or take it in. But it leaves an impression, and that impression becomes the impetus for him to get all excited and say, you got to see this, you have to believe in this, I've seen this, I know what's happening. And they started religion. And because it has a whiff of the truth, people buy into it. Which leads to another area of the suppression here is the unrealized human player here wonders why the situation isn't better. Why can't I have a better marriage partner? Why can't I have more money? How can I make sure my kids are not doing stupid things that will affect their life? If you hear something higher than life, like this is the explanation for that, you will glom onto it and say, now I know what's happening. I have a higher purpose, like a religion or a cult or the Minnesota Vikings. And this is how religions and cults survive. They'll tell you some of this esoteric information, and now you know you have the solution to life. From me and the I'm laughing at my teacher. I told my teachers I was disseminating the truth, and he snapped at me. He said, "Your truth." Oh, okay. Then what is the truth? I didn't ask him, but if my truth isn't the truth, what is the truth? Still reeling from that. That was 10 years ago. So beware of being signed up to something that is higher than life. Like a yogi school, or the Masons, or the Moon Cult, or the UFO cult. These people sell the hope of esotericism, which is connecting with your higher centers. If you can connect to your higher centers, you can know all. You'll remember that you're an immortal, all-powerful, spiritual being playing a game, which in this case right here has gone on for 105 to the 33rd power in years, which is 105 with 33 zeros behind it, and there's no word for that except the childhood word GAZILLIONS. And the game here has gotten in this sector of this galaxy to what we have here. And Robert Morningsky said, you may not like it, but it has arrived here, and we must have all the game hasn't been ended, so we must have liked it so far. And here we are, doing it again, or doing it still. So the higher point in the game is to live connected to your higher centers and your power, and to live consciously, still in your chimpanzee platform. And when you die, the spiritual thing will pop out of the body. And unfortunately here, part of the suppression is the planet is a business, and the spiritual being that you are is recycled into another human body to carry on the production of products here. And this is done through a process which is called implantation, which is the ability to electronically manipulate the spiritual being, to capture him and put in what you want him to think is his ideas, and send him back. This is taking advantage of reincarnation. Now there are implant stations on the moon. There's one on Mars. There was one in Scotland, but it was destroyed. And there was one in the Andes, which was destroyed. And some people are fighting back. This was not in the news. So when you pass away, you'll hear like a bell-like command, report back, and that means report back to the implant station, which is what the light is. Go into the light. The Shetu, the Greys, and the reptilians are waiting for you there, and they will grab you and implant you again, send you back for another lifetime. Worse than that is the theory that one is reliving the same life over and over in infinity. And if you are being enslaved for infinity, that's pretty hard to take. And how that is explained is life is a circle from birth to death, and you are reborn again. You go round and around, but each one is a layer, like a coin. You're stacking this life, next life is exactly the same, stacked right next to it, right next to it. This creates a line, so a point becomes a line. If you take the line and move it in another dimension, you get a plane, and if you pull the plane into another dimension, you get a solid. And this would be a solid of your lifetimes in infinity, which is very big. And then that exists in eternity, which is infinity squared. So if you can follow that someday, this is thinking in new categories, that you have this infinite and eternal solid of the same lifetime, and you're unaware of that. And if you became aware of that, you would probably pop out of your body from the shock. You would die. It would be so horrific. The positive side of that is, without the suppression, you have, I have a great life. And it just keeps on repeating, and it's just great and great. Met the right girl, had great kids, had lots of money, went fishing, went boating, vacation, had fun, did good in the world. Dead. Your funeral, he was a great man, it's a sore loss. And a week later, here we go again. The downside, and not everywhere, but here, in this sector of this arm of the galaxy, things are suppressive. And it's not as much fun and enjoyment as it could be. And until we clear that up, the game here will be getting out from under this suppression. By businessmen from other planets using the Earth as a resource. They're taking human beings to be slaves and soldiers, and since that grouping is mainly quadrupeds, things will work for them like the liquors from here, the drugs from here. beautiful young women and children as a product. And that's not that far away, in that if this was on TV worldwide on a loop and other things, I'm not to toot my own horn, but if everyone knew this, things would probably change in 90 days. It's just the unknownness of the slavery keeps it alive, which is why the why of the secret society. And there's no answers to anything. Are the UFOs? Yes, no. Are they alien abductions? Yes, no. Is the government crooked? Yes, no. No one's saying this is the way it is. And what's coming up is the danger of someone, which we will call the Antichrist, coming and saying, I can fix this. This is the way it is. And everyone will flock to that, but it's not real. It's more, it's to contain the bubble of spirituality which is coming up. And one of the reasons, or maybe the reason for the war that's coming and the great culling which is occurring right now, is too many people are getting interested in these kinds of ideas, which could lead to a revolution on planet Earth. So they need to kill as many people as possible so they can reimplant them with spirituality. Is a bad idea. And that is thinking in a new category. I hope that the word psychedelic actually means to expand your mind, which can be done with education or meditation. And in just doing that, you are already more free than most people. So I encourage you to take a look inside. That guy was helping me once. He said, what about this? And I said, I don't know. And he said, have a look. Because have a look is the cure for I don't know. Because you actually do know. You just don't want to know. It's inconvenient to know. And I was very shocked to find out that I did know. We just kept on saying, have a look. I don't know. Have a look. It's in there somewhere. And there's a function in the mind called the file clerk. And if somebody says, what's your birthday? And you tell them, it's because the file clerk went and ran to where that was stored and went here. Or anything else you may have in your mind or higher mind. And some things are stored away under, don't look at that, it's too scary or too painful. However, the file clerk can still go find that. It may take a little longer. And that's what have a look is for. For example, when was the last lifetime where you were successful and happy? I don't know. That's a crazy question. Have a look. There are no such things as past lifetimes. Have a look. Ever heard of that? You may remember a story. This story will lead the file clerk to where you have this data of past lifetimes hidden. And why that is, each lifetime has its pitfalls. A pitfall is something painful. So this is important data. I must not let this happen again. But I don't want to keep remembering to it because I feel embarrassed and like less of a person if I remember that while I did that. So it's stored over here, way in the back. But it's I can't have this thing just drifting in because it's interfering with my current happiness. But I must have it around. I got to keep it just in case that happens again. People have pick a number, 200 of those, and the energy used to hold that out of your sphere is taking away from energy that you can use to run your higher centers. So in higher school, they have methods for getting that stuff out. And calling it as-ising it. If you look at something exactly as it was created in the same unit of time, it will disappear. I mean, just a quick example. My wife's a bitch. Really. What did you do to your wife? I cheated on her for years and years and years. What do you expect? Oh yeah, it's my fault. That's a small version of the process. I'm going to end this with Mel Gibson screaming freedom at the end of that movie about Wallace.